Hi, it's Barbie Armenta. I'm a professional life coach and I am the founder of The Right Combination. And I just wanted to share with you a little, the other couple days ago I posted a photo. I had been to an event that was kind of a big production. It was the life of Jesus from birth to the resurrection. But after the performance, we got to meet some of the cast and take a few pictures. And so I went and had my picture made with the guy that played Peter. And I had posted it online because 15 years ago, there was a store, I went to an event and I heard someone telling the story of Peter walking on water, and it just changed my life. Like, I couldn't quit talking about it for a couple of days. Because what I heard was, if I stay focused on Jesus and not the storm around me, that I could do anything, that nothing would be impossible with God. And I just, that story just changed my life because it changed my perspective. I started seeing things different in my life. At the time, I was in a marriage that was, we'll say, difficult. And so I just literally started just staying focused on God and what He had for me instead of the noise and the sounds around me all the time. And after that, I did not realize just how much I was going to need that story in my life and how God was preparing me through hearing it, and just what I've learned about perspective and how when we're just in our everyday life. I have a couple of clients that when they came to me, they were really unhappy in their job. And what I found is that their job didn't change, but over time, as they changed and their mindset changed and their perspective changed, that their job even became a better situation, just due to staying focused on God and not the storm around them. When my now husband and I started dating, we dated for 4 years, and that 4 years we dated God's way. There was no sex outside of marriage. And I know people think when they look at that time, how did you do it? I had enough friends that would say, he's just not that into you. Y'all are just friends. And, I could have focused on that, just all the noise that was around me all the time. And he would be saying, isn't this what women want? Don't you want to be respected? Isn't this what God tells us to do? And I had to just stay focused on that. I believe that what the Bible says is true. And when He says to do, He gives us guidelines and guardrails for a reason. So we had to listen to that. And now that we dated 4 years, now we have 4 years of marriage to look back on and just really realize how much we needed those lessons. Because you're going to need, when the storms do come, and they will come, you've got to know how to stay focused on God. And not only that, we're strong. Richard and I have learned that we're stronger together. That we don't blame each other for things. We don't get offended. Do we do things perfectly? No. Do we ever get angry? Of course. Marriage is tough. Life gets hard. But whenever we first got married, people wanted to know, oh, was it worth the wait? How was the wedding night? Was it worth the wait? Well, yes, of course. That was great. But 2 weeks into our marriage, we found out Richard had prostate cancer. And so he wasn't here now he was facing possible impotence, incontinence, besides that it's cancer. So it's always sounds scary. And over that time, it was his faith and his focus on God that got us through it, because he just kept saying, that is not the God we serve. This is not how this story ends. We did not wait this long, and he waited longer than me. So, for the story to end this way. And he stayed focused that whole time. And today he is cancer-free. He's symptom-free. Everything. None of those things happened. He's not impotent. Doesn't have incontinence. He's totally healed. And thankfully, when we went through that storm, we weren't focused on it. And then a few years into our marriage, we've been really blessed to be able to write a book and share things about our story and talk about purity and dating. And we've started our ministry and started The Right Combination. And it's been an amazing journey, but there's always sacrifice. And a couple of years ago, we went through I was laid off from my job. So now you've got starting a new business. Now you have financial stress. We have people asking, does Barbie have a job? I'm asking myself, why haven't I found a job? We're dealing with all of this in the midst of, I did have a job. I went to school to be a life coach, and I started my coaching practice, and we were writing a book, and things were happening, but only if you had the right perspective. If we looked at the checkbook, things were not happening. Things were tough, and financial pressures can be one of the hardest things on a marriage. Finances are one of the number one reasons people go through a divorce. And what we learned was to stay focused on the blessing. God just kept showing up, providing for us. His provision's amazing. We've continued to tithe even when it didn't make sense, and God just keeps showing up. We were able to pay our bills. We putting food on the table. All those things were still happening despite the fact I was taking classes. I was working part-time jobs, trying to make this work because we believe it's what God called us to. And so, but in the midst of it, with the right perspective and standing side by side, we were stronger together and focused. So the next year, he gets laid off from his job, and that's this year. Beginning of this year, it takes a couple months for him to get a job. Now we're both working part-time jobs, building a coaching practice, writing a book, starting a ministry, speaking and doing these things. And from the worldly perspective, when we look at our checkbook, it was getting scary. And, we didn't know what was going to happen next. We didn't know when I was going to sign more clients. We didn't know if we were going to get speaking engagements. We didn't know where he was going to work. But all that time together, we were dealing with it together and not blaming each other. And through that, when we have the right perspective, when people ask, have you got a job? Have you published the book? Have you finished the book? Have you done this? And no is the answer to a lot of those questions. However, with a different perspective and with focus on God, we see God's provision always showing up. We see that we have 7 publishers looking at our book right now. 7 people could say no, but they could also say yes. As long as there's not a no, there's still a maybe, and we still have that possibility out there that only through God is our book proposal sitting in front of 7 publishers right now. And, that's super exciting. We have a growing coaching practice. Things are happening. And I just felt like on Sunday that God was telling me, you need to preach in the storm, because it can get heavy sometimes and feel like, what's next? What are we doing? And I just love looking back and seeing God showing me 15 years ago what he knew I was going to need today. That I was going to need to keep the right perspective, that I was going to need to keep that same passion that I had. That weekend I heard about Jesus walking on water. I told everyone that would listen. And I didn't understand why everyone wasn't as excited as I was. Or maybe they had heard it before and it wasn't new to them, but not growing up in church, it was new to me. And so, I told everyone, and I had just such a passion, when someone starts something new, whether it's becoming a new Christian and you're just learning about the love of Christ and you have such passion and it's so exciting, and then we can become complacent and we forget. It could be something we started, it could be a diet, it could be a new job, it could be anything, and we're so excited in the beginning, we have so much passion, but then that passion can wane and we start taking things for granted. And I love seeing that passion that we had for really following God and walking in obedience when we were dating has carried over and been something that we need in our marriage now. But what happened was, if we had been just casually dating, if we had been having sex outside of marriage and we were building a foundation on the physical when we almost lost it, what would that have happened? I talk to so many women that they're like, I don't know where we don't have any emotional intimacy in our marriage. But the reality is they didn't take the time to build it in the first place. So they've got to build it for the first time. And not everyone's willing to take that time to invest once they're in that far, but if you take the time up front, it's hard in the beginning, but it saves you that in the middle. So those single people that are single out there that that hear that message that they can do it that way and start that way, then it will save you so much difficulty later. It'll save you from that divorce or just that difficult marriage or trying to build that friendship that you didn't have in the beginning. So I just want to encourage you today to keep your perspective, to keep your mindset focused on God. It may not be a relationship for you. It may be other things that you're struggling with in your job or other relationships. But when we keep our perspective, we stay focused on God and we don't look at the storm around us, that nothing is impossible. That's what I've learned, that nothing is impossible with God. So I hope you'll catch me on social media. Follow me on Facebook. It's The Right Combination. I'm Spa Barbie on Twitter and Instagram. I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear what God's doing in your life, where your focus is. What's your focus today? Are you focused on God or are you focused on the storms? So I would love to hear from you. So leave me a comment or send me a message, and I hope to see you soon online.